Welcome, my decaying darlings, to restless grounds, where the tales are as twisted as a smile frozen mid-scream in a family portrait that no one remembers posing for. I'm your host, the groundkeeper, and tonight's bedtime fright is the antique camera. Lie back, close your eyes, but don't blame me if the image develops before you wake. And remember, some futures aren't for seeing, they're for becoming. The shutter clicked before Harlan Voss could think better of it. He stood alone in the cramped darkroom beneath his decaying Victorian, the Leica heavy as a tombstone against his cheek. The mechanism gave a wet, sighing whir, like a lung collapsing for the last time. Harlan lowered the camera and allowed himself a thin smile. Let's see what tomorrow looks like, old girl. 3 days earlier, the shopkeeper, eyes too wet, too shiny for a living face, had slid the Leica across the counter. Shows you exactly 24 hours ahead, he'd rasped, but only the parts you're meant to see. Harlan had laughed. He had spent 30 years behind a lens, proving he decided what the world was meant to see. Critics called his portraits unflinching. His wife, in her final months, had begged him to take just one picture of her. He had refused. Death doesn't belong in the frame, he told her. She died unseen. Harlan called that mercy. Pride always does. That first night, he aimed the Leica at his desk, yesterday's newspaper, half-full coffee, the same dust motes hanging in the lamplight, and pressed the button. The next evening, he carried the roll downstairs. The chemicals smelled wrong already, copper and something sweeter, like blood left too long in a warm mouth. He told himself it was the old emulsion. The print bloomed in the tray. The desk was identical. The newspaper headline warned of a storm that would arrive tomorrow. But in the lower corner, half hidden by the filing cabinet, lay a dark shape on the floorboards. Long, still, roughly the size of a man. And on the wall behind it, the mantel clock read 3:17. Harlan snorted. Light leak. Cheap vintage stock. Happens. He pinned the print and went upstairs, whistling through the cough that had lived in his chest for months. Over the next week, the camera became his secret vice. He photographed the kitchen table. Tomorrow's dishes waited, but a reddish stain now spread beneath the legs, larger than before, closer to center. Copper-sweet smell rose off the wet print. He told himself fix a residue. He photographed the upstairs hallway. Tomorrow's coat hung on the hook, but the smear near the baseboard had grown, darker, almost reaching toward the lens. The clock on the wall again read exactly 3:17. Dust on the negative, obviously. He photographed his own bedroom. Tomorrow's bed unmade, but the pale figure beneath the sheets had open eyes and a thin line of dried blood at the corner of the mouth. Harlan stared until the cough took him. Mirror ghosting, he muttered. Classic. Each print carried the same stop clock. Each print carried that copper-sweet smell even after it dried. And with every new photograph, the dark shape was no longer a distant smudge. It had crept inward, larger, more detailed, closer to the center of the frame, like the future itself was stepping forward to meet the lens. Mrs. Lang from next door came for sugar on the 5th day. She saw the latest print, the hallway, and her face went the color of old paper. Harlan, that looks like blood, and that shape. Just a flaw in the camera, he said, voice tight. You know how these antiques lie. She left without the sugar, didn't look back. The cough thickened. Sometimes when he spat into the sink, he tasted metal. He photographed the medicine cabinet to see if tomorrow's prescription would arrive. The print showed the cabinet open, pills scattered, and something long and limp draped over the tub edge, closer still, almost filling the lower half of the frame. He ripped the photo in half before the fixer finished. The torn edges felt warm, damp like skin. By the 8th day, the wrongness had teeth. The dark shape was no longer a shape. It had arms. It had a face turned toward the lens, and still Harlan explained it away, because admitting what he saw would mean admitting he had spent years refusing to look at death, his wife's, and now his own. One final test, he decided. He would photograph the front hallway, prove the camera was broken, then smash it with a hammer and finally see a doctor. Tomorrow's mail would be on the mat. Tomorrow's sunlight would slant across the floor. Tomorrow he would be fine. He waited the full 24 hours. That night he stood in the darkroom, hand shaking only a little, and slid the final print into the tray. The image bloomed. Sunlight, front door ajar, letters scattered on the mat, and in the exact center of the frame, face turned toward the lens, eyes wide and empty, lay Harlan Voss, blood at the corner of his mouth, the Leica still strapped to the wrist that no longer had a pulse. The mantle clock behind him read 3:17.4. 1 terrible second. Harlan felt relief. He laughed, dry cracked. It's a trick. Tomorrow I'll burn every print and see a doctor. I'm still here. I'm fine. He stepped outside into the cool night air, breathed deep, felt the breeze on his living skin. The dread receded. He almost believed it. Then he went back downstairs and spread every photograph he had ever taken with the Leica across the counter. They resolved like a nightmare waking up inside another nightmare. The first print's tiny shadow under the filing cabinet, his body, 9 days away. The kitchen stain that had grown larger each time. His blood, spreading as the days ran out. The bedroom figure with open eyes. His corpse, closer still. The spilled pills and the limp form in the tub. His final, useless attempt to stop what the camera had already promised. Each image had been taken exactly 24 hours before the moment it depicted. Each image had shown the same future, but the corpse inside it had crept steadily closer to the center of the frame with every click. The Leica hadn't shown him tomorrow. It had shown him his death, pulling that death 24 hours closer to the present with every shutter he tripped. His pride had done the rest. He had refused to photograph his wife's dying face. Now the camera had spent 9 days forcing him to photograph nothing else. The Leica sat on the counter, lens pointed at nothing. One frame left. Harlan reached for it one last time, maybe to smash it, maybe to take the photograph that would prove this was all a joke. His fingers closed around the body. The shutter gave a single, soft sigh by itself. The darkroom light flickered once, and somewhere upstairs, a clock that had never existed before began ticking toward 3:17. The groundkeeper returns, voice low and dry as old bone. Well, Harlan thought he could keep death out of the frame. Instead, he spent his last days pulling his own corpse closer, one perfect exposure at a time. The man who refused to see his wife's end developed his own in exquisite detail. Grim, isn't it? So the next time you feel the urge to peek at tomorrow, darlings, remember, some shutters only close once. And when they do, the subject never gets to complain about the lighting. Sleep tight, if you still can.